Welcome everybody. Nice to see you. It's our third webinar dedicated to running and funding FemTech companies. So today we're going to talk to our outstanding alumni, the ones who actually received FemTech grants. I think for those who probably just joined the whole FemTech Club kind of thing, I probably need to tell us what FemTech Club stands for. So FemTech Club is the leading global accelerator for FemTech companies, aiming to make, basically our aim and our vision is to make 1 billion lives of women around the world better. And we're doing it through helping these outstanding startup founders with their early stage companies. And today we're going to hear some success stories. I think we should start by, well, maybe I should start by introducing myself. I'm Katja Leng, one of the co-founders. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And the reason why I started this whole thing together with my co-founder, Karina, is because I really wanted to share all this experience that I had while running companies. This is my 4th company to date, and I've been through so many ups and downs. I've been through all the possible, probably made all the possible mistakes a startup founder can possibly make. So I feel like I'm well positioned to warn the founders against those. I've also raised quite a few rounds of funding, and I sold one of my companies. So this is what I can share. And Karina is the one who's passionate about FemTech, and she got me into this FemTech thing. And now I understand what FemTech really is. It is not just women's health. It's not just about women's bodies. It's about actually empowering and improving lives of people around the world and making the world a more balanced place. So let's start with you guys saying a couple of words about yourselves and what you're building. Kiddies?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Katja, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. So my name is Kadis Tesfaye. I'm the founder and CEO of Yeni Health. We are a startup actually in Ethiopia, early stage startup. We focus on giving women access to sexual and reproductive health education and products. So we've built a mobile application that's going to allow women to really have self-agency over their reproductive health, ask questions, but also, and most importantly, have self-agency through accessing products and having choices. We are actually the first FemTech company in Ethiopia in this market. So super exciting to really bring something new, innovative, and really essential for women, but also, it comes with its own challenges. So I'll definitely share more about kind of how that journey's been, and also happy to answer any questions as we get through the conversation.
Kidis has a very, very impressive company, and she's a very impressive founder as well. She's been a bit modest here, but we'll hear more about this. Ilaria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ilaria. I'm from Italy, and I'm the co-founder of Majwa. Majwa, it's the swatch of sex toys. We make modular, elegant, and comfortable strap-ons that leave women the choice on how to enjoy their body. What we have developed is basically technology that is hidden inside regular underwear that allows to plug accessories for sexual wellness. And we address specifically queer women. That is a segment that has been heavily disregarded by other brands, but that has a huge potential.
Amazing. Another brilliant example of what FemTech can do. So since we're here to talk about the challenges as well as the good things about running a FemTech company, can you talk a little bit through what was the most challenging parts of your startup journey? Was it, people talk about a few things, something on the surface. First of all, how do you tell your parents about what you're building, Ilaria? Was it hard?
Yeah, it was this kind of was much harder than doing mine coming out. Was more tell them what's my job. So it's actually what it's hard is indeed to make them understand that there's a pain point in this demographic, and that nobody is addressing it. So I think indeed being taken seriously by your family, but also by your professional network might be a little bit hard. But I think it's actually how do you position yourself, really how do you talk about your startup? And I think that actually people get it when you explain it and you have your numbers and you have your proof of what you're telling. People can actually understand that. I mean, they don't realize because they've never thought about it. But indeed, when you talk about it, people really understand what's the problem you're trying to solve.
Brilliant. So you got the acceptance. You're feeling less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yet my mom just want me to be happy and just make sure that I don't, screw it up. But apart from that, whatever I make, it's fine.
Kidis, was it a challenge to move back to Ethiopia after so much time in the US?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, I mean, you guys know me, but I was born in Ethiopia, but I moved to the US when I was 2 years old. But I've always grown up in the US, where a lot of these things we're working on, in the developed world, even there's challenges. But I grew up having access to many things. And when I came to Ethiopia, I mean, I was the first user of what we're building. So I had a hard time accessing products myself. I remember I would pack, my luggages would be half full of just products like basic either menstrual products or other basic needs that I would have. And it was just so hard to navigate in a space where actually millions of women don't have access to these basic things, and understanding, there's such an underserved market. So I think that really opened my eyes. So, subconsciously, something that I've been dealing with. So for the last 6 years, I've been in Ethiopia since I first moved back. And I also worked in the healthcare sector myself. So even within, working from the provider side, I've seen kind of the burden in the health ecosystem. And also I've seen areas where there's challenges around supply chain management, accessibility of products, price points, as well as just knowledge. In Ethiopia, compared to other sub-Saharan African countries, women have lower level of knowledge in this area. So, being in an emerging market itself comes with its own other challenges. We're still a developing country. So you're dealing with just so many layers of other things. That's become kind of part of our journey now with Yane Health, is really understanding who we're serving and what are their immediate needs, but also how can we add long-time value. We're focusing on the women from 15 years old to 49 years old, and between that age, their reproductive life, they're going through so many phases, they're dealing with so many issues, getting their first their menstrual cycle, all the way to having their first pregnancy, first miscarriage, anything like that. So we're really trying to come up with this comprehensive care that speaks to a lot of women in this country. So I think, as great as it sounds, in terms of what we're trying to do, like the challenges are just as massive. So I think the biggest challenge, kind of, to sum it up, is like bringing in something so innovative, especially, where tech and data enabled, which is still kind of a new thing in Ethiopia, right? Compared to other developing countries. Our country still now really becoming more digitized and digitalized. So even the fact that we're really trying to do something bold in the space for women, a segment of the population that have been underserved for so long and that are excluded, comes with its challenges. So I think, with kind of being innovative and using tech, we've dealt with a lot of challenges around like the regulatory frameworks. So understanding, data sharing policies, how do we make sure that we're giving women their rights, but also that they're protected with their data. They're giving us information on their application, and then safety of products. So we really have, we've been spending a lot of time understanding that landscape very well, and making sure that the woman is always centered. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that women are who we're solving for. And I think because our team, we're a women-led, women-founded company, most of our team members are women. So we understand the problems firsthand. I think that has helped us kind of overcome these challenges and really turn them into ways we can advocate, in the sector at a national level as well. So I guess those, I think, would be the biggest challenges. And then I think, I'll talk a little bit more about the funding challenges in a bit as well.
Brilliant. Ilaria, do you have any more challenges to add?
Yeah, sure. So I agree with Kirix. There's one point about really understanding your audience and the problem that they are facing. There, it's very important. For us, it's even more important because since we are building hardware, you cannot iterate as fast. So you really need to test your hypothesis before starting to build the product to make sure that what you're building really answers some needs. So I think that one of the biggest challenge for us developing hardware is really making the right product, finding the right feature mix to do a first iterations and really be able to develop and iterate fast when it's not that easy. So everyone is talking about lean startup and so on, but how do you do that when you really have hardware product? So for us, it's the main challenge is really developing the right product apart from all the fundraising stuff. And I think one more challenge that is specific, I think for many FemTech company, but for us was one of the biggest one is actually how to talk about sexuality online because it's still a taboo topic for all the meta ecosystem. So it's not easy to, it's very easy to get censored or like you cannot do sponsors posts. So it's actually pretty hard to grow your network and your audience on this platform when you talk about sexuality.
It is very challenging space for advertising. You know, I apologize for my, I don't know why they just decided to start doing something really noisy. My neighbors, I'm really sorry about this. This is the joys of working from home for you guys. Yeah, so let's move on to discussing the funding. I think there are again quite a lot of myths and sort of common knowledge around funding for FemTech sector, also around funding for female founders. Apparently, we only account for what 2% of VC funding. I don't know what the percentage is for angel funding, but for FemTech in general, it's fairly low. So do you find it hard to pitch to investors, or what do you think are the issues that what are the issues that you have experienced? I guess speak from your experience.
Sure, I can start with that. Yeah, so this has been the most, I think the funding space has been super exciting for me, but also one of the most difficult things that I've really been encountering. So number one, again, going back to the fact that we're in an emerging market that again comes with its own risks that and that investors really are interested to know about and learn about. So just being from fundraising for an Ethiopian femtech company has been difficult because we're not really investors are kind of like, oh, we don't know too much about that space. I mean, globally, femtech is still relatively a new industry, right? It's still growing. And in a market like this, where it's new, there's a lot of hesitancy. So I think that's been one of the major challenges. But also, I mean, I've tried kind of I've been, talking to investors both in like the European market, the US market, and then also the local market here to kind of assess what's going on. And I think I oftentimes find myself like when I'm talking to them, really spending a lot of time explaining why it's such an important space to work in. Oftentimes we get this feedback like, oh, these are considered as like luxury items or like luxury kind of services, but it's like, no, like these are women's essential needs. So I think really there's a lack of understanding of the work that we do in femtech overall, but specifically also in SRH and family planning, like the fact that we're focusing on that space. So really getting connected with investors that understand the significance of work and problem that we're solving has been a challenge, but also, for us, we're still an early stage startup. We're still pre-revenue. We're dealing with, we've spent a lot of time really engaging with our users, talking to women, really making sure that we understand their needs, developing our application to fit their requirements, making sure we're, in tune with the local infrastructure, the regulation and all of that. And we haven't started sales. So we are, the traction we have is very, it's not financial or it's not monetary. So a lot of the times when you're so early coming in with a new idea and a new space, there's so many unknowns that it really becomes a topic of like, oh, okay, you're not ready yet to get funding at this point. Like you have to go get, kind of bootstrap longer and do these things. So I think That's been a big challenge. Is like, okay, we really have to show our numbers, really get out there, the market start selling. But then you go into other markets, or like the US or European market, and companies are able to raise millions just with an idea, in this space. Especially male founders, like you mentioned, Katya, there's a few significant amount of women, especially in FemTech, that are able, getting these funds. So these are actually reality on ground. And I think that's what I've been learning a lot. We opened up our round about a month ago, like officially, and we're kind of seeing the process. Like, I mean, I talk to at least 6, 7 investors every week, like straight, like couple hours, like due diligence, kind of like really understanding our business model, our strategy. And it seems like at the end of it, I mean, they're super excited about it, but it's just like, no, there's still something. So it really shows to you that as a global, as a global kind of, there has to be more movement in this space. And I think it's going to take time for investors to really understand why it's important overall. So yeah, that's kind of our experience, but we're still at it. And I think also being open, something I've learned is being open to, grants as well. If you guys are considering a startup, really look into the grant space. They really focus on these, as a lot of these women's health issues are around SDGs and so on. There's really some really great grants that are out there that align with kind of the mission that a lot of our companies have. So we've also been thinking about the blended finance through that way as well.
What would be your main recommendation for actually convincing the investors to go for what you've built? To any early stage founder, what's the key thing that you kind of tell them and you see that, okay, they get it?
I think it's really sustainability, to be honest. At the end of the day, we're all mission driven. It's great that we care about women and we're trying to get these, change women's lives, but you really have to show that your business model is sustainable and scalable. I mean, that's kind of an all across board kind of main thing that you can focus on, is how do you really stand out as a business, no matter where you are, whether they get it or they don't get it, that at the end of the day, your bottom line makes sense. You can create something fast, get their funding, and be able to have a clear exit strategy. So I think if you can nail that part, a lot of those other questions can kind of become like, they're willing to take the risks on the other areas if you can really prove that to them.
That's super useful. Thank you. Ilaria, can you talk us through your funding challenges or successes?
Yeah, so we actually decided to not starting a proper fundraising journey from the very beginning. We really wanted to bootstrap the company, focusing more on developing the product rather than because as Kidist was saying, fundraising can really be very time consuming, and at the end of the day, you might only get no's at the very beginning because you don't have the traction, you don't have the numbers to actually show that what you're doing, it's worth investing. So we decided not to spend too much time on it right now and to focus more on bootstrapping money. So we applied for grants, we applied for prizes, we got the FemTech Lab prizes. So we're really trying to diversify the source of revenues and not only focusing on fundraising as end, but rather as a mean to then achieve your next steps. But with some let's say some conversation we had with investors, what they liked the most, as Kidis was saying, is actually the business model. It's really how do you plan to scale the company, and actually what are your different revenue streams? So even if they don't understand the product or they cannot understand the problem, that they will understand. So really trying to translate all your mission and passion and your drive into numbers and into and into really actionable, insights that they can actually grasp. So this, I think, it's one of the things. So that's why, like, the good conversation we had, the moment when they actually started to look at you differently is when you present, like, for example, on our product, regardless of the fact that it was kind of a niche product, but what they were very interested in was really our business model that was based on repeated purchasing, so that could guarantee a long lifetime value for clients. And this is something that is not you don't see every day into the sexual wellness models. So that's why they were interested. But apart from that, I would say diversify my suggestion would be really research in advance your investors and not waste time pitching the wrong investors, because you can do it as a test, so that you actually test your pitch and you get more confident with it, and you get some feedback and you can integrate them, but really make kind of 3 to 4 tiers list of investors and research, and only talk to people that they are willing to understand, because otherwise it might be a little bit waste of time, actually a long waste of time.
It could be also very off-putting, right, to get the no's.
Yeah, exactly. It's very frustrating, and you might optimize also your pitch for the wrong people, and sometimes it's not even that it's not your pitch that is off. It's just that you're not talking to the right people.
That's a brilliant piece of advice. Thank you, Ilaria. So we know for a fact that an accelerator has been a part of your journey. So what would you say you got out of it, and how would you recommend approaching joining any accelerator programs to other founders? Kidis?
Sure. Yeah, so obviously, FemTech Labs was amazing for myself and also for our company. I think the biggest thing, now it's been about, over a few months since we've been done, and I've really been reflecting back on kind of my journey, especially since the fundraising round has opened and engaging with that. And I think one of the greatest things that I'm realizing is that the great network of FemTech focused investors that we've gotten a chance to, engage with. So I think, it goes back to what you were saying, Ilaria. I think it's good to talk to many investors, get their input, but at the end of the day, you have to remember this company is yours. You're the one that's leading this company. You're the one that's setting the vision and mission. And if you tend to sway all over the place, it shows. And you really have to come in there really confident, know what you're talking about, and you're going to get tough questions. And I think at the end of the day, when you're talking to the right people, they ask you the right questions that really help you, as a startup. What should I be thinking about? Oh, that is a big risk. We should probably face it this way. Or like, what are other companies, similar in our space that we can really relate to? So I think the FemTech program has really allowed me to tap into that network of other, alumni as well that I've went through it. I've been able to connect with other startups to kind of see, hey, what was that journey like? Or who did you talk to? And I think although sometimes talking to investors, even that may not be in the FemTech space, is difficult and could be considered a waste of time. If you do it the right way and are open to them listening, you can really use you can also tap into their networks, right? So an investor, this is their job, right? They're out every day, 9 to 5, whatever the time is. Their job is to find startups to invest in. So the money's there. So they may not, directly have an interest in a company that we're building, but they may have a colleague or their old firm or their another, whatever, may have somebody that will one day could be your potential funder. So I think I've been introduced by so many investors that were not the right fit at the time, but then linked to amazing investors that are now they're in our pipeline, and we're really getting to a very strong discussion about them engaging. So I think don't always turn down conversations just because they don't necessarily align, but go into it with an open mind. Be mindful that they have a massive network. So I think that has been great with FemTech Labs, but also having access to the advisors. While we were in the program, we had great workshop sessions that we did, but also that extended beyond the program, right? So I know I tapped into the advisor network that we had beyond. So anytime I need something with, somebody to just go over our data architecture or anything like that, I could tap into that kind of network and say, hey, somebody from Microsoft or Google, we have them in our list. Let me just do a 30-minute call, get some feedback. So I think I've really been able to leverage on those as well. And just, really building on, on my fundraising pipeline as well, using that to kind of keep track. And I think somebody may not be interested in your company today, but 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, you're the right person, that, you're the right company at the right time for them. So really just putting yourself out there on their radar is great. And I think the FemTech Lab has also helped us really communicate what we're building across all of their platforms. So that's also been another takeaway that has been super helpful.
Brilliant. Thank you. Ilaria, what were your takeaways?
So for me, I think the most really I think it was the best thing of the accelerator was the accountability that gives you. And I think I've been doing a couple of accelerator and no one had the capacity of FemTech to actually keep us on the right track. So I think that was the biggest piece of advice that I would give, is to really really make the exercise of setting the right objectives and try to check in regularly with the FemTech Lab team, but also with yourself, to really know if you're doing the right thing. And then also, as Kiris was saying, I think depending on the moment where you are in your journey, but all the webinars are actually designed for you to follow your path as an entrepreneur, to actually think about your project. And I think you really should reach out to the right people, because the network is very important and it's pretty huge. And they actually can make you change your mind on a lot of things, because you might think that you have everything clear in your head and stuff, but actually being challenged, what will bulletproof your strategy, or will actually, you can adapt to and integrate some feedback that you get. So I would say don't hesitate to reach out to people, be serious about your check-ins, and really be responsible and accountable for what you do. And I think by the end of the day of the program, you will see the difference. Like for now, we've been like 1 month out of the program. I can see the difference. Like I know that sometimes, like, what am I doing this week? It's just that because I am not doing the exercise of, just setting goals and have, measurable things. And now you can say, okay, so but what have I done this month? So it's very easy to get lost when you're all alone. So I think one of the biggest, the coolest thing of this group is actually the network, and be surrounded by people that also give you the peace to work, like the pace also to do things every week and not lose yourself.
That's so true. I feel it myself as well. when you work in such environments, you just feel like, the pressure's on all the time. So guys, since you are FemTech founders, do you have any feelings about what makes us different as FemTech founders? Is there a special breed of people? Is it what really is it that makes us unique? And as opposed to fintech founders or some other founders, is there anything, or do you think we're just founders and that's that?
No, I think we're very unique. I think it's such an important segment to really be loud and fierce about. Not only are we striving to serve for half the population of the world, but also, when you're really changing a woman's life, whether it's through her health, education, whatever the case may be, you're really changing a nation, you're changing the world. So I think, women are the gateway to their family, right? They're the gateway to a community. So I think the moment you focus on a woman, you're really focusing and investing on a community. And I think that, on a macro level, you see the impact that it has on a national setting, on a global setting. So I think that is really powerful within itself. And I think it needs to be recognized that way as well. But also I think as a business, in terms of the business side of it, I think FemTech is really in the we're in the sweet spot of like having a traditional business, but also like being a very mission-driven organization. Every FemTech company that I've encountered, they're really creating great impact in women's lives. And at the end of the day, they're being sustainable. Their bottom line is looking great. Their projections are amazing. Their year-to-year sales, all of that is great. And I think it takes a unique type of company to become that, where you care about, the people that you're serving, you're making money, you're getting your investors what they want. And I think, I think it's incredible. And I can't wait for it to grow. And I think more people need to get involved, more women need to get involved. And I hope that it will become a common thing, even in Ethiopia, as I was mentioning, we're the first ones here, and I go to offices and say, hey, we're FemTech. And they're like, FinTech. I'm like, no, FemTech. And I'm still like explaining FemTech, female technology, we know what we're serving. And I think we're still early, especially here in Ethiopia, but that's where it starts. And the more people that know about it, the more women that we have leading organizations, we come with compassion, we understand each other, we understand ourselves better than anybody else. So I think that's the ingredients of business. I think that's what makes this company successful, is when you know your users, you're providing truly something that's needed, not an extra thing, but these are all essentials that we're working in. So I think that makes us stand out than an ordinary founder. Yeah.
It's so powerful what you said about women are the gateway to the community. This is just so true, and it really has the potential to improve women's life. Is a potential to improve communities' life, countries' lives. It's so much at stake there. Ilaria, what would be your description of how we're different?
I think that what's interesting about the FemTech industry, I think is the only industry where you have more female founders than male founders. So this, as as an industry, actually changes, because you only interact, or you mainly interact with other women. So the kind of interaction, the kind of sharing, it's pretty different. So even just talking to your peers, I think it's you have that empathy because you know what you're going through. I think you're having also more honest conversation, because we don't spend our time about bragging about how cool is our company, but we actually tell each other, this is really hard, this is shit, I don't know, I feel very bad about something. And this is something that you don't get when you talk to men entrepreneurs. You have the feeling that everything is great, and you go on LinkedIn and you only see people overachieving stuff, and this can actually be upsetting if things are not going well for you at a specific moment. But in reality, you know that it's probably going bad for everyone, but just no one is saying it. So I have the feeling that in this environment, we feel safer also to share down moment and not only up moment. So I think this is very healthy for the community as an entrepreneur, to be surrounded by people you can trust. And second, I think that it's one of the, I think what Skis was saying is one of the few industry where where entrepreneurs really understand the struggle of their customers. It's not uncommon, actually. Most of the female founder that I encountered in the FemTech starts from their personal struggle. So it's not just, I know the subject because I know that people have problem with their sexuality or with their fertility. It's just, I have experienced this firsthand, and I decide to take action for that, even though I might not be the most expert on a certain subject, but I have the will to put my other skills into this project to solve this specific problem. And I think this is not it's not very common in many other industries. You may have people that, of course, are very knowledgeable about their own industry, but might not know the struggle themselves as a in first person.
So true. Brilliant. Thank you, Larry. So whilst before I ask the last question to our panelists, I want everybody to, if you have any questions for us, please shoot. Tell us what you need to know, and we'll try to answer today. So my last question, because since you guys got the grant, would be your sort of recommendation to, okay, getting the FemTech grant, and also, how do you spend it? Since you suddenly came into some money, what's the best way to spend it in your company?
Yeah, sure, I can start with that. So I think for me, from the onset of the program, I think we found out about the grant kind of after we got in, but be intentional and deliberate. I think with anything that you do, like make that be a part of your plan. If your plan is to raise an X amount of money, write that down, really have plans to work towards that. And I think what helped me was doing that exactly. So I think one of my major objectives throughout the program was, how do I make sure that I meet all of my other goals that will lead me to getting this grant, right? So I think when you're intentional about something and when you are setting KPIs and OKRs with that in mind, that's how you meet your goals, right? So I think be intentional, but then also in terms of using it, I mean, how I go about it is, any amount of, money will come, you'll get funds, you may win a pitch competition or you may get grants and so on, but you really have to go with your plan, right? So don't, just because you're getting money, like I'm not out here spending the money just, oh, willy-nilly, you just got free money, but really think about what are the priorities in your business right now, what makes sense in terms of spending to get you to the next level, right? The first round of funding, whether it's a grant or prize, whatever it is that you get, is really, it's a pathway to your next funding. So how you use that money is really going to say a lot to other investors, because this is a question that I always get asked, like, oh, you've raised this much and this much so far. What have you done with it? What's your plan with this kind of money you're raising? So really have a plan and go with that plan. So, have a segment of that money. I mean, for us, we right away took that money in, and our plan was to begin securing our products for the first launch of the e-pharmacy, and then starting, right? So right away, we were able to purchase our products. So we have our inventory, we covered some of our inventory, and then other things like social media campaigns that we had already planned for. So it was nothing like new that we just created to just use the money for, but it really went into having a straight business strategy in line. So, when you are organized as a founder, organized as a company, have a clear plan and strategy of how you intend to grow from, early stage to becoming, selling your first products to gaining your first user and all of that. It's really important, and it really helps you grow and scale. And again, it speaks to investors. You're telling the story, right? You're telling the story, how you took this, turned it to that. Then now you got this, you're turning into this. I think that's how you build value. And that's something that they love to hear. So I would say that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Ilaria?
I think this was very clear, and I agree 100% with everything she said, because for me, it was really having clear objectives that are really expressed in numbers. I think this is very important to have measurable objectives. So whatever you have in mind, try to translate it in numbers, because then this will really give you a sense of how you are progressing. Like, am I 30% of my objective, or am I 70%? So it's actually, so you understand on what you should focus to grow, and then really break this down in, like, translate this objectives into action, and really try to focus on execution and say, okay, every week I have to do this action to contribute to this objective. So for me, it was the best strategy, let's say, to move forward the program. And about the money, as Kiris was saying, it's really about where are you in your journey, and getting the right thing to get a bigger investment. So for us, for example, we were in a moment where we had to show investors that there was interest in this kind of product. So we need to show the traction, and so that's why we launched our reward-based crowdfunding campaign. So it's really B2C, to see if people are actually pre-ordering our product. And so we use the money to basically create the content, do sponsorships to actually drive content traffic to this campaign, and show that people are actually buying this product.
Brilliant. That's so good to hear, actually. We didn't know about how you use the grants. We have a couple of questions. So does everybody get a grant? Only selected people? Not everybody gets a grant. It is a competition, and we base it on the performance and achieving your KPIs during the program. So it's not even, when the all startups are amazing, it's not even the best startup essentially that gets the grant. It's the best, most dedicated founders essentially who make it happen for the grant to be awarded, to be awarded with the grant. So this time we had 4 winners, and we'll see what happens next cohort. There's another question from Maria. What are the time wasters and the focus disturbance things from your experience as an early stage founder that you can point at? So what do you feel like was a waste of time and kind of just got your focus away?
Yeah, okay, I can start with that. Yeah. So a couple of things jump into my mind immediately with that question. Number one, I think in general, when you're building something in an early stage, there's so many new ideas that come up, right? You're dealing with something that you're like, oh my God, we need this, or we can do this. And I think also throughout, engaging with other, investors, colleagues, advisors, you also get so much, input. Hey, you should do this. Now's the time to add this. Or maybe you're looking at, other companies that are, in other markets doing the same thing you're doing. And all of these things, they're good to be aware of. It's good to always take in the different comments you're getting, different feedback. But at the end of the day, they're distractions. You really have to remember your why. Your why is so important. You started this company for a reason. You started it with a clear vision and mission. So you should never lose that confidence. You should never let that again sway your decision on, hey, what's the next move? Do we focus on B2B, B2C? All of these key, decisions that you make as an early stage really impact your growth. And I mean, you started this thing with a clear vision. You know what you're doing. You're the founder of this. You understand the problem, and don't get distracted by what other companies are doing, how you should incorporate their features into your app, or how you should think about delivery, all of these things. So that's number one. And then number two, in terms of, I guess, not a distraction, but I guess a time waster, I think for me, from my experience, I mean, we have a very ambitious, like, long-term goal. Like, we want to be the biggest healthcare company in Africa. Like, I'm confident about that. I know that deep down inside, but you can't come out that strong to some, you have to know your audience, who you're talking to, and also for your own team. I mean, as an early stage, you have this great vision and you're so confident about it, but at the same time, you have to be very strategic and like set milestones that will really get you to that big level. So don't waste time thinking about anything past year one, to be honest. For me, I'm like 12 months is like my focus. And then I also break that down. Okay, what is our goal for the next month? Because we're really running on assumptions. As a startup, you really don't know. I mean, as an early stage, you really don't know how a product is going to be. You could have done the best market research. This product is needed, but until you're out there selling a product or a service, you really won't know what's going to happen. So I think without having a lot of data to prove your concept and, revenue that you're generating, don't spend so much time on the 12 months and above. Like, it's good to have, high level strategies and plans on, how you want to grow as a company. But again, the part of the journey is you're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to pivot. Something that you started out building is going to be like, oh my God, actually, we don't need this. We have to think about this now. This is more of a pressing issue. Their willingness to pay for this is actually lower than I thought. So I have to think about it in this way. So again, if you spend too much time on years 2, 3, 4, you may be wasting your time on something that may not even work. So again, my advice would be really focus on the now, the tomorrow, your first 100 customers. Then you kind of use that to kind of build on and pivot and evolve. But it's just not worth it when you're early.
Thank you. This is so helpful. Yeah, best of luck with rapid rise to #1 in Africa. That's the wishes from Maria here. So I mean, so inspiring. This is just so true as well. I can totally relate to what you're saying, Kiz. Ilaria, what would be your
So to me, I think that the only real time waster is your toxic thought, like what's actually inside your mind, the things that you're so it's basically you against yourself, and all the time that you think you're not good enough or you cannot do this, because then you make bad decision, and that's what actually makes you waste time. Because, for example, for us, it was something about we weren't confident that we could do things on our own, so we were wasting time, contracting freelancers and stuff like that, and so you had to brief them, but then they didn't get it. So you waste a lot of time in iterating. And then in the end, they said, you know what, I have it clear in my head, I will do it myself. And actually you do it better. So in one sense, they kind of help you challenge yourself and actually get there. But we know if you actually wouldn't doubt so much of yourself, probably you would do it and be better off. So this, I think, it's like the number one thing that for us was waste of time. And on the other side, I would like to say like something about it's not what you always hear, but I really believe in this, is like, because I had this tension to actually spread around and do a lot of stuff, because to me everything is actually an opportunity, and you don't see it right now, but maybe like with time you actually are able to connect the dots. So it's a little bit counterintuitive for us, like for example doing, or like we did multiple accelerators, we were in a lot of association and groups of entrepreneurs and stuff like that. Yes, of course it was very time consuming, but I wouldn't say that it was a waste of time, because now I know that if I have a problem, I know who I have to activate, I know that somebody can help, and actually everything becomes more an opportunity. So it's more how you live it rather than just wasting your time. Then of course in some moments you have to prioritize and be a little bit more focused, but if opportunity comes, just evaluate, and probably it's better to take them rather than say no right away.
So true. I can totally relate to this as well. Yeah, good point on being everywhere and later connecting the dots. Yeah, that's so true. I can add from my perspective, I think also people spend too much time sometimes on their pitch decks. And I know we do this in Accelerator because, this is part of how we develop. But in my opinion, absolutely every person in the world will have an opinion on your pitch deck. And everybody would have a different opinion on this pitch deck. And everybody would have an opinion of like, oh, you just need to add this, or you just need to remove this, or you just need to do this better. So the biggest time wasters in my experience have been redoing endlessly pitch decks, trying to fit, like, to make it liked by everyone. And then going back to Kitty's point, and I think Ilaria's point as well, about the investors, like, if they don't like me, maybe we're not meant to be together. It's like dating, like whatever, move on, next one. So it's not always about pleasing and following the investor and trying to do what they told you to do with your pitch deck. Actually, in my experience, my best and most loyal and actually kind of quickest fundraising kind of exercises were read a cup of coffee without them seeing a single thing. This was the best thing. So you just sit there, you look, you explain what you're doing, you explain the vision, and they're like, okay, I believe you. There you go. And I was like, oh, I'm going to send you all the documents. He's like, yeah, sure, but you've got it. And this is what people a lot of time miss, that it's all about human connection after all. It's not really about the pitch deck or how perfect it is, or whether it's orange or pink, or whether it has this particular graph in it or it doesn't. All these things come secondary. Again, after what Kitty said, once you know what you're building, when you know your why, it gets so much easier to convince and involve other people. It's about influence after all. Well, I guess we had this very inspiring session, very, very, very good it was a lot of news for me personally, even though I know Kitty and Laria for quite a while now, and we worked together very closely for 3 months. And yet you see how startups evolve and change, and just change every week, I would imagine. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Kitty and Laria, to our little group of founders here?
No, I would just say one thing I would just say is, trust the process. I mean, Ilaria, we were part of the same cohort. We understand, like, we all went through just ups and downs, right? You're an early stage company trying to build something in FemTech, something new, innovative, cool, but not everything is going to be sweet and pretty. And I think you should embrace that. That's part of the journey. You're going to have some down, some doubts some days, and you're going to have so many no's. But I think getting no's, I actually enjoy getting no's now. I get so excited. I'm like, I'm one step closer to a yes. I just got to know, but there's still a yes out there for me. So really embrace that. You aren't going to be successful overnight, but when you have such a clear vision and a long-term vision, it's going to take time, and that's okay. But really, stay motivated with what you're doing, and pick yourself up. And sometimes you can just take a break and come back to it. But really, believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing, that really shows to investors as well. I think that's the biggest feedback I've gotten is like, they know right away, just based on how you communicate your mission, even if they don't. And I've gotten commitments just from 5-minute conversations. They're like, I want to invest in this company. I don't even need to know anything else. So that can really, it's really powerful, like Katya said too. So yeah, just that's my last thing to add.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kiss. It's brilliant. Ilaria?
Yeah, I would just add, I would just add, surround yourself with people you like, because you will have to spend a lot of time with them, and enjoy it, because it's in the end of the day, it's really a nice challenge.
Yeah, I think enjoyment and fun are the things many founders forget because they start to work too hard and they stress too much. It's so cool. So nice to have you guys. It was really, really good talking to you. I hope you enjoyed it, our participants, and we have a lot more people getting the recording of the session as well. Thank you to everybody. Don't forget to check out femtechlab.com in case you're wondering what we are, what we do, and join our next webinars.
Awesome.
Thank you.